The ambush started during Mom's roast beef course, right after my sister Olivia finished explaining why her wedding needed to quadruple in cost. The venue deposit alone is $60,000, Olivia said, dabbing her eyes dramatically. And we already put down non-refundable payments based on family contributions we discussed. Dad set down his wine glass with authority. Which brings us to why we're all here tonight. Alex, it's time you stopped hoarding money and contributed to your sister's happiness. I continued cutting my meat while the familiar financial intervention began. Around Mom's dining table sat the usual suspects. My parents, Olivia with her fiancé Kevin, my brother Marcus and his wife Beth, plus Uncle Robert who'd driven down specifically for this coordinated attack. We've been patient with your antisocial behavior, Dad continued, but family comes first. Olivia needs $80,000 by Friday or she loses everything. At 27, I'd been the family disappointment for nearly a decade. No flashy girlfriend, no expensive car, no impressive social media presence. To them, I was just Alex, the weird brother who worked something with computers and lived like a monk while they pursued their expensive lifestyles. $80,000? I asked quietly. That's right, Mom said in her most reasonable voice. We know you have it, sweetie. Living in that tiny apartment, driving that old Honda, never going anywhere or buying anything. You must have quite the savings account by now. Marcus nodded approvingly. Alex, when Beth and I got married, I emptied my entire savings account. That's what family does. We're not asking for everything, Beth added supportively. Just enough to help Olivia have the wedding she deserves. Uncle Robert leaned forward. Son, money sitting in savings accounts is wasted potential. At least Olivia's investing in her future happiness. The thing was, they weren't wrong about my savings. I did have money. Quite a bit of money, actually. What they didn't know was where that money came from, how much there really was, or what my computer job actually involved. Kevin, Olivia's fiancé who worked at a small accounting firm, slid a piece of paper across the table. Alex, we've done the math. Based on your salary and living expenses, you should have at least $90,000 saved up over the past 8 years. I looked at their calculations. They'd estimated my income at around $42,000 annually, the salary of a basic IT support technician. They'd factored in my modest rent, cheap car payments, and minimal social spending to calculate exactly how much I should have accumulated. They were off by approximately $47 million. Alex, Olivia's voice cracked with practiced emotion, I'm your only sister. This is the most important day of my life and you're going to ruin it over money? What if I told you I don't have $80,000 available? I asked. Marcus laughed. Come on, Alex. We all know you're sitting on a pile of cash. You live like you're broke, work all the time and never spend money on anything fun. My phone buzzed discreetly. An encrypted message from my assistant. Singapore meeting confirmed for Tuesday. Federal Reserve Compliance Team requests Thursday review. Your dinner guest should arrive at 8:45 p.m. as planned. I checked the time, 8:30 p.m. Kevin cleared his throat importantly. Actually, we already verified Alex's financial capacity. I have connections at credit reporting agencies through my accounting work. The family looked at him expectantly. Alex has multiple high-limit credit cards that he could easily use for a cash advance. 3 platinum cards with $50,000 plus limits each, plus some kind of black card with no preset limit. See, Dad said triumphantly. We knew you had access to funds. In fact, Kevin continued, looking pleased with his detective work, those cards show substantial recent activity. You're clearly comfortable with significant financial transactions. I stared at him. You ran my credit report? We needed to understand your financial situation, Mom said dismissively. Kevin was just being thorough. Those credit cards Kevin saw, I said slowly, they're all maxed out. Uncle Robert's eyes lit up. Perfect. So you know how to access large amounts of money quickly. How much credit card debt are we talking about? Marcus asked. About $3.2 million across all cards this month. The dining room erupted in chaos. $3 million. Mom shrieked. Alex, how could you be so financially irresponsible? That's not debt, I said calmly. That's operational expenses. Operational expenses for what? Dad demanded. The doorbell rang. I walked to the front door while my family launched into panic mode about my supposed gambling addiction. Through the security monitor, I could see exactly who I'd been expecting. Richard Blackstone, chairman and CEO of Continental Merchant Bank, stood at my door in an impeccably tailored suit, holding an expensive bottle of wine. Behind him was Janet Morrison, senior partner at Morrison, Hayes & Associates, one of the city's most prestigious corporate law firms. And behind them were two serious-looking individuals in conservative business attire who I recognized as federal banking compliance auditors. I opened the door. Richard, Janet, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Alex, Richard said with obvious amusement, when you mentioned your family was demanding access to your accounts for a wedding, I had to witness this myself. I brought the 1982 Bordeaux you mentioned. Janet held up her briefcase. I have the quarterly compliance reports you requested, plus the new international banking agreements from Switzerland and Singapore. One of the auditors, a stern woman named Director Sarah Kim, added, Mr. Patterson, we've completed the preliminary review of your cryptocurrency portfolio as discussed. Everything appears fully compliant with federal regulations. Excellent. Please come in. My family is eager to understand my financial situation. I led them toward the dining room where heated discussion about my apparent financial crisis was in full swing. Completely irresponsible financial management. Dad was saying. Gambling addiction. Uncle Robert was suggesting. Professional intervention. Mom was planning. We entered just as Marcus was saying, $3 million in credit card debt. How did we miss that Alex was living this far beyond his means? Actually, I said, I'd like everyone to meet some colleagues. This is Richard Blackstone, chairman and CEO of Continental Merchant Bank. Janet Morrison from Morrison, Hayes & Associates. And Director Kim and Agent Torres from the Federal Reserve's Compliance Division. The dinner conversation stopped abruptly. Richard stepped forward with practiced charm. What a pleasure to meet Alex's family. He's told me so much about all of you. I'm sorry, Dad said, clearly confused. But why is a bank CEO at our family dinner? Oh, Richard smiled. Alex is one of our most valued private banking clients. I make it a point to personally handle relationships with our ultra-high net worth customers. Ultra-high net worth. Olivia repeated weakly. Janet opened her briefcase efficiently. Alex, I have the offshore account reconciliations you requested. The Cayman Islands facility, Swiss private banking, and the new Singapore wealth management accounts we established last quarter. Offshore accounts? Kevin's voice barely registered above a whisper. Director Kim consulted her tablet. Mr. Patterson, our audit confirms your cryptocurrency mining consortium is fully compliant with all federal regulations. Your blockchain operations are properly reported and legally structured across all 12 international jurisdictions. Cryptocurrency mining? Beth looked like she was processing information that didn't compute. Richard settled into an empty chair with obvious enjoyment. I have to ask, Alex, your family seems surprised by your business ventures. Haven't you told them about Patterson Digital Holdings? Patterson Digital Holdings? Marcus repeated. Goodness, Richard continued. Patterson Digital is one of the largest cryptocurrency mining operations in North America. Alex's business generates monthly revenue that exceeds what most corporations earn annually. I pulled out my phone and displayed the real-time operational dashboard. This is what those maxed-out credit cards Kevin discovered are actually funding. Corporate operational expenses for a cryptocurrency mining business that generates approximately $4.8 million in monthly revenue. Complete silence. $4.8 million, Dad said slowly, per month. Conservative estimate, I replied. Last month hit $5.2 million due to favorable market conditions. Janet added matter-of-factly, Alex's operations span 14 countries and employ over 400 people. His computer work involves managing a multinational technology corporation. Agent Torres checked his documentation. Mr. Patterson's federal tax filings show annual income of $52 million last year. All international holdings properly reported and fully compliant with Treasury Department requirements. $52 million, Olivia whispered, per year. This year's projections suggest we'll exceed $65 million, I said. assuming cryptocurrency markets remain stable. Richard opened his wine appreciatively. Alex, what exactly prompted tonight's family financial discussion? When you called about relatives demanding account access, I was concerned about potential security issues. I gestured around the table. They calculated that I should have approximately $90,000 in savings based on their assumptions about my income. They're demanding I contribute $80,000 to Olivia's wedding expenses. $90,000? Richard nearly choked on his wine. Alex, you spend more than that on server electricity bills every week. Janet consulted her notes. Your operational expenses last quarter were $8.7 million. That includes the new mining facilities in Norway and the expanded operations in Kazakhstan. Mom looked like she might faint. Norway? Kazakhstan? Alex, what exactly do you do? I operate cryptocurrency mining farms that validate blockchain transactions globally. I own data centers in 14 countries running 24/7 mining operations for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and several other digital currencies. Kevin, who'd been so proud of his credit report detective work, looked stricken. Alex, when I accessed your credit information, those weren't consumer credit cards. Correct. Those were corporate banking facilities. Chase Private Client Corporate, American Express Centurion Business, and Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management. What you saw weren't credit limits. They were monthly transaction authorization thresholds for international business operations. Director Kim laid out several official documents on Mom's dining table. Mr. Patterson, we've completed the federal compliance review you requested. Patterson Digital Holdings meets all international banking regulations and cryptocurrency reporting requirements. Thank you, Director Kim. My family had expressed concerns about potential financial impropriety. Quite the opposite, she replied professionally. Patterson Digital is a model of proper international business practices. Your regulatory compliance and tax reporting are exceptional. Dad looked from the federal agents to the bank CEO to me. Alex, I don't understand. How long have you been operating this corporation? 7 years. I started mining Bitcoin in college when it was still relatively unknown. Used initial profits to expand operations, built dedicated mining facilities, acquired industrial-grade equipment. The business scaled exponentially as cryptocurrency became mainstream. Richard laughed appreciatively. Alex's initial investment was $75,000 worth of computer equipment in his dorm room. That investment is now valued at approximately $340 million. $340 million? Olivia's voice was barely audible. Current portfolio valuation, Janet confirmed. Though cryptocurrency values fluctuate daily. Marcus looked dazed. Alex, you're worth $340 million, and we were demanding you contribute $80,000 to a wedding? You weren't asking for a contribution, I corrected. You were demanding I empty my savings account based on calculations you made without consulting me. More importantly, Agent Torres interjected, you accessed his credit information without authorization. Unauthorized access to financial records can constitute identity theft under federal law. Kevin went pale. I work in accounting. I thought it was routine family financial planning. Accessing someone's credit report without written permission is a federal crime, Director Kim noted. Regardless of family relationships. The family exchanged nervous glances. Richard observed the family dynamics with fascination. Your family genuinely had no idea about your business success? They assumed I was a low-level IT worker living paycheck to paycheck. They never asked about my work, my goals, or my achievements. Instead, you ran unauthorized credit checks and staged a financial intervention based on completely false assumptions. Director Kim packed her documents. Mr. Patterson will have the complete annual compliance report ready next week. Your international operations continue to exceed federal requirements. After the auditors left, the dining room remained silent. Finally, Dad spoke. Alex, we owe you an enormous apology. We completely misjudged your situation. You didn't misjudge my situation, Dad. You never bothered to learn what my situation actually was. Can you forgive us? Mom asked quietly. I can forgive you. But I can't pretend that 7 years of dismissal can be erased because you discovered I'm wealthy. Richard finished his wine. Well, this has been enlightening. Alex, shall we discuss the Singapore expansion over lunch next week? Absolutely. We'll need to coordinate with the Swiss banking partners for the new facilities. I did not contribute $80,000 to Olivia's wedding fund. Instead, I paid for the entire wedding as a gift. The total cost was $180,000, representing approximately 36 hours of my business revenue. Richard Blackstone attended the wedding as my guest, which caused considerable excitement among extended family who couldn't understand why a bank chairman was at their celebration. The family's reaction was complex. Gratitude mixed with embarrassment over their demands and assumptions about my life. But the dynamic had fundamentally changed. I was no longer the family disappointment. I was the family bank. The requests for financial assistance became constant. Marcus needed funding for a medical practice expansion. Mom wanted help with their mortgage. Dad asked about investment opportunities. I helped with legitimate needs and declined get-rich-quick schemes. But genuine family connection felt impossible when every conversation centered around money. 6 months later, I established the Patterson Foundation with a $25 million endowment, focusing on technology education. The foundation's launch made regional news, finally making my achievements visible to the broader community. At the announcement, Dad proudly introduced me to his colleagues as, "My son Alex, the tech entrepreneur." It was the first time he'd spoken about me with genuine pride. But the pride felt hollow, based on net worth rather than understanding or respect for who I was as a person. Patterson Digital Holdings continued expanding, now generating over $80 million annually. The business that started in a college dorm room had become one of the world's largest cryptocurrency mining consortiums. The family respect I'd wanted my entire life arrived too late to feel meaningful. Recognition based on bank statements rather than personal worth felt empty and transactional. Sometimes success is most satisfying when achieved without the validation of people who never believed in you. The intervention that was supposed to force me to empty my savings account instead revealed that my family never knew me at all.